Hey guys, it's Charlene. I'm really excited to share this technique today. This is masked embossing. If you haven't tried this, you absolutely should. The results just look amazing. So I'm coming in here with some Copic friendly ink because I am going to do a little bit of coloring today, but it's easy coloring. Anyone can do it, beginners or experts at Copic coloring. It's so simple. It's really important when you're doing this technique to not remove your stamp from your stamping platform. You're going to see why later on. I am going ahead and double stamping here. It probably wasn't necessary, but I did it because I wanted to be able to see where all of those lines were. These stamps are so cute. They are really finely detailed, which is going to make the Copic coloring so easy. I'm just showing you a little bit of it, and all I'm using here on the berries is two colors. Because of the detail level on these stamps, the shading, I can see exactly where I need to shade. So I'm just going to come in with the darker color, the darker red, and shade over where the ink is darker. That's it. That's all I do for the berries. Then for the leaves, very similar. I am using three colors. I come in with a light yellow-green and then a medium kind of down and around the berries. And then with the darkest yellow-green, I just come in and lightly get the areas where I think the shadows would be. That's it. Easy peasy. I colored this image pretty quickly for a Copic coloring, so definitely give it a try. All right, so now this is where things get kind of fun. You're going to come in and stamp on some masking paper. You can use mint tape. I'm using Gina K masking paper. I really like this. I find it works really, really well for masking techniques. And then you're just going to fussy cut. Don't worry about how well you stamp. I just wanted to make sure I got all the edges so that way I could go in and fussy cut around the image. You also could probably do that on a scan and cut, but I'm too worried that the paper will get stuck and it won't work. So I cut it out by hand. So for this next step, make sure that your stamp is nice and clean. And you're going to come in. I've put the mask down over the image that I've already colored in. And now I am going to stamp right next to it to the right. And you do want to try and get this done in one go because your paper is going to tend to move around a little bit if it's hanging off of your MISTI like mine is. In retrospect, I probably should have stamped the other direction, meaning like I should have turned my MISTI 90 degrees from where it's at right now, and then I could have easily moved over and not had the paper hanging off, but it works just fine. Just make sure you get some really good even pressure when you're stamping. Now I'm peeling up the door very slowly, and I'm going to move my card panel over to the right so that I can do the same thing stamping on the left. And I'm just closing my door so I can get an idea of the placement, but I'm not putting it all the way down. I don't want it to touch the card panel until I am ready to go. Once I get it where I like it, then I'm going to go ahead and put the magnet back on there. And again, I'm going to stamp with the embossing ink. And once I get this second stamp on, you guys are going to see the magic. It starts to look amazing once the embossing powder gets on there. So I'm going to get some good even pressure with my pressure tool here, just back and forth, back and forth. I want to make sure to get a good even coating of the embossing ink onto my card panel. Once I have that done, I'm going to pull it out. Don't take off your masking paper. Just remember that's got to stay there while you are heat embossing. And that's because you don't want to get the embossing powder covering your main image. So I'm going to put a nice coating of some really pretty antique gold embossing powder, and I'm going to get that on there. And once I have got a nice coating of the embossing powder, I'm just going to come in with a flathead brush and brush away any little stray bits of embossing powder that are on my card panel. Once I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my heat gun, and I just have this set down on a silicone pad from Simon Says Stamp. They are awesome. Now you can see with the embossing powder melting how pretty this is going to look. coming in, getting that all melted. And you're just gonna want to make sure on this style of stamp that's so detailed that you do get all of the little areas of embossing powder. So now I'm going to come in with a weeding tool. Any kind of pointed tool would work really well to get your masking paper off. You just don't want to tear your card front or the masking paper. And I'm going to peel that off. Wow, look at that. It looks so cool. But we are not done. We're going to go back to the MISTI. I still haven't removed my stamp. I'm going to put my card panel right back where I did originally. And now I am going to put some anti-static powder tool on there. And I'm going to stamp again with embossing ink. I'm going to come in over that original image that I have now Copic colored. And I am going to heat emboss this in black. It is going to look so cool. You guys are going to see it just pops off the card. So once I get that embossing ink on there, oh, you can see that I taped the corners there on the MISTI. That was just because the paper was a tiny bit warped from the heat embossing. So now I'm coming in with some Ranger Superfine Detail in black. And again, I'm wiping away any little stray bits of embossing powder. Now back again with my heat gun, and I'm just going to melt that area. I am careful not to get back over onto the gold because I don't want it to lose any of its shine, and sometimes that can happen when you reheat embossing powder. Wow, you guys, that is so cool. Look at how that pops. Can you believe how good that looks? I'm just like, you know that saying, shut the front door? That's what I said when I finished. I was like, shut the front door. I couldn't believe how amazing it looked when it was all done. I hope you guys will try this. It's so fun. Isn't that sentiment that I stamped inside the card so sweet? I love this. It's just adorable. I cut down my card panels so that there would be a small, thin border. And you can just do this to whatever your tastes are. I really like to have a nice, thin border of the black and then also still have that outermost white border where the card ends. So I came in with my anti-static powder tool and I'm stamping with VersaMark embossing ink. Once I get that on there, I'm going to come in again with that same gold embossing powder and just with a flathead brush wipe away any stray bits. This is going to be my sentiment on the card, so I'm just going to go ahead and heat that up and make sure that it's all nice and melted. And then I'm going to come in with one of the quick strips dies that I use all the time, and I'm going to cut out the sentiment. I'm putting the sentiment on some foam strips. I like to pop up the sentiment when I'm doing a card that doesn't otherwise have a lot of dimension. I think it looks really nice to have the sentiment popped up. It kind of becomes somewhat of a focal point. And if you did have any little areas where you didn't get enough gold embossing powder or anything like that, that might be where you want to consider putting your sentiment. And that's what I did. There was a little area where I didn't get quite enough gold embossing powder, so I just went ahead and that's where I put my little sentiment there on the card. This is such a cute birthday card. I think anyone would love to receive a card like this. I did go ahead and add some sequins on there off camera. Oh, I really love how this turned out. You guys will have to let me know down in the comments what you think and if you try this technique. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell. It really helps my channel. And until next time, happy crafting.